Bonjour tout le monde, welcome to another irregular verb video. In this lesson we'll be focusing on avoir, which means to have. So let's briefly have a look at how to use avoir. Most of the time it's the same as have in English, with the notable exceptions of age, hunger, thirst, and body temperature. So I spoke about this in the être video. For these in English we use be. We say things like I am 20 years old, I am hungry, I am thirsty, I am cold. In French though you use avoir. So I am 20 years old is j'ai 20 ans, I'm hungry, j'ai faim, I'm thirsty, j'ai soif, I'm cold, j'ai froid. And of course, avoir is also used as an auxiliary verb in the compound tenses, so it's very much worth learning this one very well. So let's begin with the present tense conjugation, which is as follows. J'ai, tu as, il, elle, on a, nous avons, vous avez, and ils, elles ont. Again, as I said in the être video, don't get confused between ils, elles ont, they have, and ils, elles sont, they are. The passé composé is relatively simple. Avoir uses itself as an auxiliary verb, so we begin with the present tense of avoir, and that is then followed by the past participle, which, although it's irregular, is relatively simple. It's just an ou, I, you. So we have j'ai ou, tu as ou, il, elle, on a ou, nous avons ou, vous avez ou, and ils, elles ont ou. The imperfect is exactly as you would expect it to be. Remember, the method we use to construct the imperfect works for all verbs except être. So even if it's irregular, this method does work. So we take the new form of the present tense, which in this case is avant, remove the ons, and we have the stem av, and then to that we add the imperfect endings. So we end up with j'avais, tu avais, il, elle, on avait, nous avions, vous aviez, and ils, elles avaient. The future is relatively simple, although the stem is irregular. It's or, A-U-R, and then to that we add the future endings, which you may have noticed are very similar to the present tense of avoir itself. So it's a really good idea to get to know that one very well. So the future conjugation is j'aurai, tu auras, il, elle, on aura, nous aurons, vous aurez, and ils, elles auront. And if you know that, the conditional is relatively simple because, of course, the stem for the conditional is always the same as that for the future. So we have or again, only this time we use the imperfect endings. Remember, with the future and the conditional, the irregularity is only ever with the stem. The endings are always consistent. So the conditional conjugation is j'aurai, tu aurais, il, elle, on aurait, nous aurions, vous auriez, and ils, elles auraient. The subjunctive is quite similar to the present tense indicative, but after a bit of practice you'll get used to using these. We have j'ai, tu es, il, elle, on est, nous ayons, vous ayez, ils, elles aient. Luckily these verbs are used very, very commonly, so the subjunctive forms, although subtly different, do get very easy. The passé simple, as usual, you don't need to know in any kind of detail, but as is often the case, the passé simple forms are very, very different to the infinitives, so you need to be able to recognize them and know which one's which. So the passé simple for avoir is j'eus, tu eus, ils, elles ont eu, nous eûmes, vous eûtes, and ils, elles eurent. So you might have noticed that we have this EU again that we saw in the past participle, and quite often with irregular verbs, if you know the past participle, you can almost guess the passé simple because there seems to be a connection between the two, so that might help you remember that when you see ou, ut, ur, that you're looking at avoir. And finally we have a look at the imperative, which as usual only has three forms, and we have tu es, nous ayons, and vous ayez, which of course is very similar to the subjunctive. The only one thing to recognize is that the tu form has no s in the imperative, as is often the case. And that's about it. This has been a whistle-stop tour of the verb avoir. If you want to have a look at other irregular verbs, click on this link. It will take you straight to a playlist where all of those videos live. If you've seen anything in this video that you're not sure about, be it a tense, a mood, or whatever, then you can go to my verbs playlist, and I've made videos on all of these subjects, so you can look at those in more detail if you so desire. And that is the end of this video. If you have any questions, of course, please do ask. And as usual, à bientôt.